Hey everyone, we'll be starting in a moment. Please bear with me. Alright. That's done. That's done. Connection seems to be good. Sounds been picked up. We're good to go. So, hello everyone. Welcome to another stream of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Today, we are continuing where we had left off last time, which is midway through the second part of the fifth case. We have just proven that Judge Gogoku is the one who killed the inspector. However, something might be going on soon because something doesn't feel right. We still don't know what really happened with the professor. We still don't know who the real Reaper is. And other things. There's a lot of other stuff we still don't know. So something may happen. Or everything's going to be fine. We shall find out. Now, other than that, we got to play as Sholmes and Mikotoba for a little bit. That was fun. And there was no, like, trying to find the correct R response to fix his own responses. It was like, no, he knows. He just knows. He knows. He unveils his full power, and he was able to be like, I'm good. I know everything. So, that was cool. And yeah, I think that's everything. So without further ado, let us get into it. Today, I am going to try and not go to 10 p.m. because I did that yesterday and it was not good. Oh. Hey, Rapatron. Hey, Balaroth. Using my chat to set up Pokemon games. Are you serious? Ugh. Chronicles. Make sure it's all showing up. Sound is yes. Refresh this. Okay. We're good to go. Continue. Start playing from this saved game. The Resolve Ryonosuke Naruhodo. Trial 2. Alright. We're going straight in. Seishiro Jigoku, I need to remember what his voice was. It is the opinion of this court that you should be found guilty. And may I remind all those present of the strict confidentiality demanded by this closed court. I'm still going. I thought it was immediately going to go like, congratulations, then we just end. That would be a weird stream. A 10-second stream. Moments ago, Mr. Goku signed a written confession, admitting to the murder of Inspector Gregson and the subsequent conveyance of the body. In short, the defendant's innocence has hitherto been established beyond doubt. Oh, wonderful. Well done, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, thank you. Is something wrong? I'm just a little troubled by his silence. The true identity of the Reaper of the Bailey and this extraordinary assassin exchange. We do remain in the dark about these mysteries, however. Insofar as the indictment brought up against the defendant in this trial, we have reached a conclusion. I have in every intention of pursuing both mysteries. As a prosecutor. As you wish. Now for the formal education, or adjudication. I hereby declare the defendant, Barak van Zieks. Objection! I knew it! As soon as I said it! Same time. The prosecution calls for adjudication to be deferred. Counsel. The accused innocence has been fully established at all, and therefore it would be wrong to deliver a verdict at this time. This is the prosecution's unwavering position. What? But Judge Gigoku has already confessed. And nevertheless, Barak van Zieks has committed crimes for which he must be punished. Well, it would appear that you have information the court needs to hear, Prosecutor Sogi. Certainly, the murder of Inspector Gregson was actually carried out by Seishiro Jigoku. But it's clear from the witness testimony that he was coerced to comply with the plot into this sick, merciless assassin exchange. That may be true, but... So what I want to know is, who coerced Jigoku? Who was pulling the strings? The victim went to France, having been ordered on a mission for the Reaper, only to be murdered. In other words, the mastermind behind the assassin exchange is someone in a position to give such an order. As we've already established, the Reaper himself. Well, certainly, that would appear to follow. The prosecution hereby formally accuses the man in the dock, Barak van Zieks, of being the Reaper of the Bailey, and furthermore, I'm going to prove his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. What? Order, order, order. The Reaper of the Bailey is a long-standing mystery counsel. Are you suggesting that you have some new information with which to build a case? The Scotland Yard has already been investigating Lord Van Zieks very thoroughly in that regard, and they found no evidence whatsoever to substantiate the claim that he is the Reaper. Perhaps, but circumstances have now changed. What do you mean? It's already been established that the assassin exchange was negotiated with Jigoku by the Reaper himself, which means we now have a new line of questioning by which to identify definitively the man's identity. And that is the prosecution's intention here. They must have got a new stand, because the other one got, destroyed and sent to the heavens. I must say I'm surprised by quite how tenaciously you appear to want to besmirch my name. You are guilty of an unforgivable crime, Lord Van Zieks. And I will bring you to justice for it, whatever it takes. That explains Kazuma's silence before. I mean, you already said this, but sure. He'll stop at nothing to finish what Lord Van Zieks unwittingly started 10 years ago. Very well. While it's extremely irregular, I will on this occasion grant the prosecution's further opportunity for witness testimony, even though it's completely irrelevant to the case. Now we're going to something else. Roar. The defendant will disclose any and all involvement he has had with the Reaper and the assassination exchange. Or assassin exchange. I thank you, my lord, for the guiding court so wisely. I hereby declare this court to be in session for a supplementary hearing. Here we go again. I gotta go home. Pray turn a blind eye to the discourtesy as I verify that this vile and unremitting accusation hasn't soured the contents of my hollow chalice. Lord Van Zieks? I first had to suffer the pseudonym of the Reaper 10 years ago now, and ever since that time I've endured the weight of implied guilt that's gone with it. Smash! So I welcome the chance to testify now and crush those allegations once and for all. Oh, good. Then let justice decide, Lord Van Zeeks. The prosecution seeks to begin building its case by calling the accused to the stand as the primary witness, in order that he may answer the accusation brought by the prosecution that he is the Reaper of the Bailey. And what says the defense? Putting the defendant in the witness stand, it can be extremely dangerous. And Kazuma-sama is so emotional at the moment, he's not thinking logically. You're right that he's not himself, but I knew it would be like this, because I have fortune-telling powers, and I came here today determined to face him through whatever might arise, as a lawyer and as his friend. And then what's what moves do, even if it puts Lord Van Zeeks in a bad position and you might get killed for it? The defense has no objection, my lord. Very well. Defendant, you will take the witness stand and give formal testimony on the subject of your involvement with the Reaper and the assassin exchange. As you wish, my lord. Here we go. The Reaper and the assassin exchange. I have never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper of Veet for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day and how I came to discover the body. The point is, no common thread exists between myself and Gregson and Dr. Wilson. Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the assassin exchange. So you deny all accusations by the prosecution? Both that you are the Reaper of the Bailey, and that you masterminded the assassin exchange. I acknowledge that the public at large believe me to be the Reaper. However, that's a fallacy, which I alone am in a position to forswear. And naturally, the prosecution believes the testimony just given by the accused to be untrue. Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Yes? And let me ask you, why are you here? What really brings you to this courtroom? A desire to uncover the truth. Even if the truth proves your client to be guilty? From all my experiences in this courtroom, I've come to realize something. I'm not really a lawyer, and lawyers don't try to get their people, not put in prison if they're defendant. The truth can't be hidden. Sooner or later, it will come out. I mean, we never found out who the freaking... Not the Reaper. The Ripper. The guy that killed people that we saw in the waxwork. I can't remember his name at the moment. My brain is not working for that. But you know what I mean. We never found out who that was, so the truth never came to light. So it's always my intention to work with my client in the pursuit of truth. I want you to remember what you just said. I want you to remember. You're the one that's going to be true from false here. Enough dilatory chatter. Counsel for the defense, proceed to cross-examine the witness. No, not the professor. The real life, the Ripper. What was his name? The one that killed prostitutes. I can't remember his name. I'm playing too much of this game. They've replaced it with that woman. The false one that's not real. Ah, yes, my lord. I know exactly what you're thinking, Kazuma. I know you're just waiting to point it out. The contradiction you've convinced lies lies somewhere in the man's testimony. Jack the Ripper, that's it. Welcome, Sean. Thank you for the remembering of that. I live in the country that person was, and I can't remember his name at the moment. Jesus. Thanks, everyone, for letting me know. The Reaper and the Assassin exchange.
Hold it!
So you're not the one. You're not what the general public refer to as the infamous Reaper of the Bailey. Exactly. I don't imagine for a moment that the court will be satisfied with a one-word answer on this. I realize that. If you're intending to comment on every sentence, this could take a while, Kazuma. Didn't you find it disturbing, though? That, one by one, defendants who'd been acquitted after you unsuccessfully prosecution were killed. What? Your unsuccessful prosecution were killed. That's what I meant to say. Let me answer that question by positing another. If one by one defendants who have been acquitted after your successful defense were killed, would you find that disturbing? I mean, he was messed up from the one person that died in that case. Disturbing? I couldn't possibly say how that would make me feel with one-word answers like that. It's not as bad as me forgetting that the K in KFC stood for as a person who has lived in Kentucky for... Oh, right. I thought you meant the K stand for a person's name. Kenneth. I also have some old teams... Oh, something different. Exactly. Well, that told me. But even though I'm not the Reaper, that doesn't mean I ignored all the hearsay. I almost read that as heresy. I've been investigating the truth, blah blah blah, I already read that, I don't need to do it again.
Hold it!
You say for years. How long exactly? Since the very first time the Reaper's influence was felt in this courtroom. 10 years ago now. And your investigations led you somehow to Inspector Gregson, you're saying? I didn't want to believe it. He was a personal acquaintance. We've worked on cases together in the past. A friend, even. It felt like a betrayal, but I demanded permission to search his office at the Yard without his knowledge. Which is when you found his secret notebook, isn't it? It's when I first learned of the location he'd been noted only as the Grouse, and the appointment at 5 p.m. on the 31st. Though I didn't know the significance of those details at the time. So now we're at the nub of the matter. As it turns out, the significance for me personally was very unfortunate.
Hold it!
But why did you go to that specific location? I thought that if it was the Reaper's headquarters, then by turning up there at 5 o'clock I would catch whoever was involved red-handed. Sadly, all that was waiting me was the inspector's corpse. Yes, even though it wasn't designed for you, you walked straight into the trap set by Jigoku. Exactly. Jigoku had intended to implicate you, Boom. But unhappily for me, I arrived at the scene first. Ha! A ridiculous, careless blunder. Moved on to just throwing insults around then, I see. Kazuma. Think what you will. It doesn't change the truth.
Hold it!
There is a link between you and Gregson, though. Of course, we are close acquaintances. We worked on numerous cases together. I consider the man to be a mentor of sorts. He taught me a number of important lessons. He did? Such as what? He's so sassy while still being accused of murder. Hey, that's Barrack for you. Where to buy good fish and chips, and such like. Well, that was convincing. Dr. Wilson was a coroner, of course, but that was some time in the past. And in any case, I understand it was several years ago now that he was invited to work as a Japanese university. That's right. He was a visiting professor at the Imperial Yuma University in Tokyo. It should be unambiguously clear then that no link exists between myself and him. In other words, I had no motive for sending some assassin across the ocean to kill the man. It sounds plausible enough, and I want to believe it. But something about this doesn't quite sit right with me. Or because the autopsy report was signed by Dr. Wilson. Common thread. Let's see if I can find it. This one? Yeah. John H. Wilson, coroner. And then, you know, Gregson.
Objection.
What is this? An autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old, from the autopsy of Claude Clint Van Zieks. What? My brother's autopsy report? Why do you have that? I'm pleased to see the defense doesn't intend to run from the undeniable truth. Order in the court. What reason do you have for presenting the 10-year-old autopsy report here, counsel? This, the autopsy report of the professor's final victim, is an indelible link between Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson, and the defendant. Not that accursed name again. The professor. I've personally researched all of the court records relating to that case. That one was missing, though, so I don't know how I would know about it. I know that at the time, autopsy was considered sacrilegious to the victim's soul. And for a member of the aristocracy like Lord Clint Van Zieks is unthinkable. But someone implored the powers that be to allow the autopsy to go ahead. Inspector Gregson. He declared that he was certain he would obtain a conclusive proof from the procedure. And it was Dr. Wilson who conducted the autopsy. For all we know, Gregson probably shoved whatever they found into the body. They were like, oh, look at this! This is weird, guys! His signature is clearly visible on the document. As promised by Gregson, the autopsy did indeed produce evidence. Evidence that conclusively proved Genshin Asogi was guilty of the murders. In my brother's dying moments, he mustered all of his remaining strength to leave that vital clue behind. Indeed, that was the key to indicting the professor for his crimes and the conclusive evidence that convicted him. It enabled Lord Van Zieks here to avenge his brother's senseless death with a marvelous victory in court. A marvelous victory, was it? I wonder if that's really true. What? Could the same be said if it turned out that the key piece of evidence in question was in fact fabricated? If the inspector, the coroner, and the prosecutor all colluded together to cast an innocent Japanese man as a mass murderer and send him to his death. That's outrageous. And now, 10 years later, for some reason, the secret has been threatened and needs protecting. Which is why the inspector and the coroner had to be silenced, isn't it? Well, the coroner went to prison, so she's still alive. But by someone in power in Japan and in Britain, using the two killers recruited for the assassin exchange. Order at once. 10 years ago, my father was convicted in this very courtroom as a mass murderer to be sentenced to death. But it was all a sham, and I swore to myself that I'd prove it. Which is why I had to come to Britain. Whatever the cost. You'll have to forgive me if I feel compelled to toast this vengeful Nipponese tenacity of purpose here. However, he who fails to quash his emotions in the courtroom has failed as a lawyer. Come on, Cosmo, you know this won't wash. You're claiming your father was misrepresented in a trial that took place a whole decade ago. You must see that without evidence, that's nothing more than a wild accusation. As it happens, I have evidence. What? As the court has heard, I crossed the channel to France with Gregson on the 31st. I went with him to the pretext of being the assassin recruited to kill Seishiro Jigoku. But my true intentions were to make the inspector tell me the truth. What truth? the truth about the evidence, and he acknowledged what I'd already deduced. There's a closely guarded secret about what went on in their autopsy 10 years ago. What? A secret? I know nothing of any secret. While we waited for my supposed mark in Jigoku's cabin, I drew my clan's illustrious sword, Karuma, before the inspector's eyes. He very quickly understood what my true motive was. Wait, I gotta put the echo on for the flashbacks. Right, I see. You're that Asogi young lad, aren't you? And what, you're gonna cut me down with that thing? Is that it? That will very much depend on the answers you give to my questions. I want to know what really happened 10 years ago. The truth, that's all. Before we get into it, let me make one thing clear. I still believe your father was the professor. There's no doubt in my mind. But unfortunately back then, we didn't have the evidence we needed to make the crime stick. So, you admit it then. The evidence used in my father's trial was fabricated. It was for the good of the country. Anyway, I was just following orders, Sunshine. Orders? What exactly did you do? Speak! I'm not saying another word. Even if your life depended on it? But that's right. Even then. So that's when the tip of the sword was found in the box. Oh, Kazuma-sama. Is that what he said? That's when the tip of the sword broke. Yeah, there we go. If the result of Clint Van Zeek's autopsy were fabricated, then the investigating officer Gregson and the lead coroner Wilson must have known about it. And they can only have been ordered to pervert the course of justice in that way by one man. The man leading the case for the prosecution, Barak Van Zeeks. In other words, the defendant did have cause to organize this exchange of assassins. Exactly, and as we established earlier, it has to have been the Reaper himself who liaised with Joku in Japan to arrange the exchange. So it follows that the Reaper's true identity can only be that of the man who stands accused in the courtroom today, Barak Van Zeeks. Oh, because he was the lead investigating the investigation, he's the one that's responsible for everything. Kazuma Sogi. What? What you've just told the court. Are you absolutely certain of your facts? Did Gregson really fabricate evidence for that trial 10 years ago? I heard it with my own ears. His shameful admission. If only you recorded it, man. But it's the 1900s, so you probably don't even have recorders yet. Or portable ones, anyway. In that case, I know. The name of the Reaper. What? Lord Van Zeeks? I gave no such orders. I know that for certain. Which narrows down the remaining possibilities to one. If Lord Van Zeeks isn't the one behind all this, which we should know already, then yes, there is only one other person who could have done something like that. I believe I know who it is too. You? I just had a feeling this name was going to come up. The true identity of the infamous Reaper of the Bailey is Herlock Show. I've got two ideas here, right? Number one is that it's Yuji Mukotoba, because he was the one that performed the autopsy. He was there. He would have had to have been a part of the whole thing. and fabricated the evidence. But it might not be him. It's more likely going to be male Strongheart. Especially with the way he's all shadowed and evil looking in this picture. Because there's no one else that could have done it. It wouldn't have come from Barry. It couldn't come from anyone else. She's 19. I'm going to have to go with male Strongheart. It's the only one that makes much sense outside of Mikotoba. So...
Take that!
The only person who could have arranged the assassin exchange and manipulated the autopsy results is the Lord Chief Justice himself, Lord Male Strongheart. Oh, what? Lord Strongheart? Yes, it's true that 10 years ago the defendant handled the prosecution of the professor in court. But he only took over the case after his brother, Lord Clint Van Zeeks, had been killed. I can only assume that this is the most inappropriate joke in British judicial history. Well, Lord Van Zeeks, 10 years ago, I was very new to my profession. Thought she was 18? Well, you were wrong! But yeah, she's actually 19. Cool. I'm like reading chat and you all just talking about fighting in Pokemon and I'm just like, oh, I guess no one's watching me then. But I had a burning desire to avenge my brother's death, so I pleaded for control of the case. The investigation to that point, the supplication of their laws to allow my brother's corpse to be examined. All the evidence I was given, the autopsy reports, it all came from you. Ow! My jaw. Ow, that really hurt. I spent my life since then believing I was in your debt for the way you stood aside and let me handle the trial. But I see now. I was very much mistaken. It was a hugely influential force that caused the Inspector and the Coroner to break the law 10 years ago. And that same force was still felt a decade on the other side of the world by Seishiro Jigoku. Lord Strongheart, everything falls into place when you recognize that you are the Reaper of the Bailey. Has there ever been a case where we had to actually say, actually it's the judge that killed them? I think it's the first time. The court awaits your response, my lord. This may very well go down in British judicial history, but I assure you, it is no joke. Consider this a formal accusal of the by the defense. It doesn't warrant a response. Leg. I knew it was coming. I was waiting for the response of leg. You tore it now. Ooh. Hope you're okay, Rapatron. That doesn't sound fun. Or good at all. A formal accusal. Don't be absurd. The defense's claims are utter nonsense. A wild fantasy at best. You're not going to defend yourself? You claim there was some wrongdoing with Lord Clint Van Zeek's autopsy. That's utterly untrue.
Objection!
But I heard it from Gregson's own lips. He admitted to it. And where is your evidence? What? Yes, see? It gets thrown back in your face. Gregson's dead now, unless you were thinking of summoning a ghost to the stand. You mean to say... I forget how the system works in your little backwater country. But in the courts of the British Empire, without evidence, there is no case. I have no intention of entertaining some wild fantasy that can't possibly be substantiated by anyone or anything. To be fair, this is the fourth time a judge has been under suspicion. Is it? I mean, like an actual judge presiding over the case. I mean, I think we've had times where a judge has been on the stand. But, geez. Order in the court. following Inspector Gregson's murder in the light of Dr. Wilson's death as well. There's really no one left who could testify about the events of 10 years ago, is there? I mean, you can. So that was the real purpose of the assassin exchange. This court has no business raking over the coals of a case that was concluded a decade ago. The accused report by the prosecution and the defense is categorically denied. I take it there are no objections. Kazuma. He's more or less waited his whole life for this moment. Is there really nothing else we can do now? Is there no other avenue we can go down in pursuit of the truth of what happened all those years ago? If only there was someone who could testify about Clint Van Zeek's autopsy. Well, there is. He's gone to extraordinary lengths to cover his tracks, even so far as dispatching an assassin all the way to Japan to ensure Dr. Wilson's silence. And Dr. Scythe won't say anything against Strongheart. But there's still one ray of hope.
Objection!
Actually, there is one person. One person who could still testify about the autopsy. Don't be ridiculous. There's no one left. Who, Ryunosuke? Who? Tell me. Kazuma, please, this trial can't end. Not yet. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the truth. And you're the one that told me to remember that. The person the defense would like to call to the stand to testify about the autopsy of Lord Van Zeeks is...
Take that!
I knew he would come up... Heaven help us, another Japanese. An expert in forensic medicine, my lord, Professor Yuji Mikotoba, 16 years ago. He came to London with Seisho Gogoku and Genshin Asogi as a visiting student. And what could his testimony possibly tell us? Professor Mikotoba was the primary assistant during the autopsy in question. He was also the person who actually penned the report. Incorrect. The autopsy was carried out by the coroner, Dr. Wilson. The report carries his signature. It was the primary assistant's duty to keep a written record of the coroner's work during the procedure. In actual fact, the coroner merely read over the report at the end and signed it. In other words, Professor Mikotoba witnessed the entire autopsy from start to finish. The defense demands that Professor Mikotoba be summoned as a witness as a matter of urgency. Whatever really happened in that autopsy laboratory 10 years ago is something only he can tell us. The defense's demand is denied. What? But Professor Mikotoba is in London at this very moment. We could summon him to the stand in minutes. No, of course he's not going to agree to it. Stronger has no intention of summoning anyone who knows. He's too concerned about protecting himself. Prosecutor Asogi, let me refresh your memory as you seem to have forgotten the prosecution's stance. Only minutes ago, you accused the defendant of being the Reaper and of masterminding the assassin exchange. I did, yes. So present your evidence for those claims and make your case complete. I've been proven wrong. Again. At this time, I don't have the requisite evidence, but that's exactly why we need witness testimony. The prosecutor's Professor case is closed. There are no clues in the distant past that will bolster your argument today. I'm afraid to say, Prosecutor Asogi, that you would appear to have possessed by the spirit of your late homicidal father. Now, as I stated earlier, this court has already reached a conclusion with respect to the matter at hand. Inspector Gregson was murdered by the Japanese Supreme Court Judge Seishiro Jigoku. And as for the hidden circumstances that may exist, they will be investigated in due course by the proper authorities.
Objection!
But we all know what will happen. That'll just give the mastermind of the whole venture time to cover his tracks again. By which you mean me. Your punishment for this contemptible behavior will be decided at a later date. As for you, Prosecutor Asogi, you will be remanded following the proceedings willingly, I trust, since you gave your word. This futile game of revenge is over. Young Master Asogi. He's so upset. I can't go for that long. And that will be all. I hereby declare this trial to be over. Court is... It's Sherlock Sholmes. And new music. Mr. Sholmes. This is no place for amateur detection, Mr. Sholmes. May I remind you that these proceedings are closed to the general public. You will leave the courtroom at once.
Objection!
Mr. Sholmes was instrumental in the apprehension of Seisho Jigoku before he fled from Europe. The court should hear what he has to say. Lord Mayor Strongheart, it is imperative that you refrain from bringing this trial to an end at this stage. Is it really? And why would that be? You need only recall your own words from the opening trial to answer the question, if I may. We will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Surely it can't be that the shock of being accused of being the Reaper yourself has erased that from your memory, can it? The whole truth, sir, was already been discovered. It would seem that we have a great many important members of the judiciary present here today. I put it to you, my dear fellows, should the trial end at this juncture? After all, why have you been invited to attend? To nod along to the provocations of your superiors? Order in the court. It seems to me that they stand before a door that leads to a new era of legal practices. A door that is ajar. A big jar. That has emerged from the shadows of the Reaper's decade-long ascendancy. For you and you alone, my dear fellows, have the power to push the door open now. The auditors in the gallery have no rights to express an opinion on court proceedings. Silence. Who cares what the public think? He's right, the judge is the absolute authority here. Yes, if he calls the trial to an end, it must end. But will that really do? I sense dark things occurring behind the scenes. Dark things indeed. Is there a single person here present who can honestly say the same? Or something? What's... The trial should go on, summon the witness. That's right, we need to clear this up before the dumb Japanese fellow is remanded in custody. My lord, you assured those present that you would uncover the whole truth here. Vindicate yourself of this outlandish opposition or position. Whatever, accusation, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's the very foundation of British law. A toast to my dependable colleagues in the gallery. This is so cool. Yay! Well, my lord, you hear the voice of the British justice, I take it? I think you'll find it rather awkward to silence. The court recess will begin briefly. I have no intention of shrinking from these allegations. Bailiff, arrange the subpoena of the witness at once. As soon as the gentleman arrives in the courthouse, we shall reconvene. A recess won't be necessary, my lord. Pardon. Mikotoba is a close friend of mine. He accompanied me today and is waiting in the antechamber as we speak. You don't get to have it continued. You have to do it now. I do believe he's been enjoying a little trip down memory lane, in fact. What? Professor Mikotoba is here in the courthouse? Mr. Sholmes, you didn't know this would happen, did you? My dear fellow, No one is in a better position to answer the question than you, surely. I wasn't just asking for the fun of it, you know. Well, I must thank you for your assistance in this matter, Mr. Sholmes. However, you are of no further use here. Kindly leave the courtroom at once. But of course, in truth, I find myself rather busy now as a result of these developments. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I trust you have Iris's little lucky charm with you. Absolutely. It's still in my pocket. She sends her regards and a reminder. If you find yourself at a dead end, the ears are at your disposal. Just one tug, if you please. Oh, of course. In that case, the trial will continue without delay. Bailiff, show the witness to the stand. Sholmes coming in clutch once again. So it's Lord Strongheart. He's the Reaper of the Bailey. Where exactly is this trial going to take me, I wonder? Just how deep am I about to be plunged into the blackness of the abyss? Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to head into the heart of this maelstrom and confront whatever horrors it tries to drown me under. Oh, okay. Now we get it to be continued. Okay, I guess that's where we're going to have one. Yes. Part 3. Doesn't even say where it is. We're in the void now. Hasn't even been an hour. It hasn't even been an hour yet, and it feels like so much has happened. This isn't even the most unhinged Sholmes gets. Oh, wow. Okay, there's going to be more, I guess. Oh, what the hell? What are you doing here? Why are you just staring at him? So, witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. Yuji Mikotoba, lecturer in forensic medicine at the Imperial University in Tokyo, Japan. And Professor Mikotoba, the young lady beside you is... Ah, this is Dr. Maria Gori, Scotland Yard's practicing coroner, the daughter of Dr. Scythe, I understand. Yes, Dr. Scythe. I'm afraid I can't tell you why she's here. She just appeared, like a ghost. You summon this strange Japanese man as a witness to that autopsy. But you don't summon Mama? That makes no sense. She was there too. That's about the size of it. I've had her eyes boring into the side of my cheek constantly while I was at the antechamber too. Poor man. The idea of it's making me shudder. The revelations about Dr. Scythe that came to light some days ago devoured the reputation of the entire judiciary. She was therefore deemed unfit to appear as a witness in today's proceedings. The Ministry of Justice's decision on that is final. Well, we wouldn't want any more perjury to be committed, would we? So sassy. That's her Uncle Eugen. The Ministry of Justice. Some questionable strings are being pulled, I think. I remember you, Dr. Mikotoba, but I certainly never expected to be meeting you under these circumstances. Yes, it's been quite a long time, Lord Strongheart. The prosecution understands that you were a visiting student of forensic science in London until 10 years ago. That's right. I studied under Dr. Wilson of St. Sinners. So you were present at the autopsy of my brother, Lord Clint Van Zeeks. Damn it! Now that you guys showed me that freaking meme of the guys who said, "You mean my brother, Clint?" It's just like every single time it comes up, I'm realizing how much he says it like this. I was, yes. I assisted Dr. Wilson with the entire procedure. Mama is far more skilled than any Japanese man. Well, Dr. Wilson asked me to be his primary assistant on that occasion. And this autopsy report was actually penned by you, I believe. Yes, I noted all of the doctor's findings when we were done. He read through the document and signed it. My poor mama. As secondary assistant, she wouldn't have had such a good view of all the innards. So, Professor, do you remember Inspector Gregson? Yes, of course. If it wasn't for his insistence, Lord Van Zeek's autopsy would never have happened. But he was absolutely convinced that he would reveal the decisive evidence against Genshin, you see. So Lord Strongheart had to entreat the nobility to allow it to take place. Do correct me if I'm wrong, my lord. It was a result of that autopsy that a mass murderer was apprehended and justice was done. But Gregson admitted it before he was killed. He admitted that the results of the autopsy were fabricated. You were there at the time, so you must testify. You have an obligation to tell the truth about what really went on. Absolutely. That's precisely why I'm here. And that's why I'm here too. Very well then. You will give your formal testimony now, witness. But before you begin, a word of warning. Oh? You will state truthfully and accurately what you saw and what you heard at the time. I wouldn't dream of doing otherwise, my lord. The moment your testimony verges on supposition, I will expel you from my courtroom. Remember that. Oh, yeah, if you say anything that's not actually a part of the case, I'm going to get you kicked out because I'm a baby. I liked you, Lord Strongheart. How could you be evil? Why would you do this to me? The autopsy. From my own observations, I couldn't say there was any indication of the autopsy results having been fabricated. Death resulted from the wound by a Western-style sword transfixing the heart. Then I found a little strange. There were no other signs of internal injuries, nothing questionable at all. It was just that beautiful but dangerous piece of evidence removed from the man's stomach. Presumed to have been swallowed by the victim as a way of posthumously identifying his assailant. No indication? Nothing to suggest fabrication? Professor Mikatoba, are you certain about that? Well, nothing that I could positively identify as such, much less swear in testimony. Well, that clears things up nicely. It's the first time he's laughed. He's evil! Oh, whoops. I mean, when I first saw him, I was like, he's probably going to be a bad guy, isn't he? I think you can go back and watch that. I think at some point I say something like that. The only fabrication here, Sogi, has come from you. What? You claim the inspector confessed just before his death. But that is the fabrication. No, he freely acknowledged it. I swear he did. Freely, with the tip of a sword at his throat. The man was clearly at his wit end. The court will give no credence to this confession that was uttered in obvious desperation. Quite simply, there was nothing questionable about the investigation of Lord Clint Van Zeek's death. And with this testimony we have, without question, uncovered the whole truth of the matter. She's still just staring at him. If I may, my lord. There was most certainly something questionable about it, and the whole truth does rather elude us, I feel. I beg your pardon. Well, you're obviously aware of the facts of the case. All four of the professors of previous victims died when an enormous beast was set upon them that ripped out their throats. Oh, such horrifying crimes. But curiously, the killer's last victim, Lord Clint Van Zeek's, suffered a different fate. I have it on good authority Gen 10 is next year. Huh? Deltarune tomorrow? What? Yes, you're right. He was stabbed through the heart with a sword. That's enough. I believe I warned you about this, witness. I promise to curtail your testimony as soon as it entered the realms of supposition or speculation. Huh. Very well, my lord. In that case, the defense will pursue a conclusion to this during the cross-examination. What? I have the right to cross-examine every witness after testimony. And I fully intend to exercise that right. Ryunosuke, I'm afraid that even the presiding judge has no authority to contravene the letter of the law, as I'm sure every member of the judiciary present in the gallery would agree. Huh. Very well. You may begin, counsel. I'm starting to regret ever bringing you into my court. However, the moment your arguments stray from the established facts, I will not hesitate to bring the cross-examination to an end. Proceed with caution. Putting all these unneeded restrictions makes you seem more guilty than you might be. So, you know, you're making yourself look bad. Yes, my lord.
Hold it!
Hold it. You couldn't say. No, sadly not. But then you couldn't say there was an indication either, could you? No, true, I couldn't. I was at Dr. Wilson's side as he performed the procedure, recording what he did. But at times, of course, he instructed me to fetch implements and such like. Whilst I was away from the operating table, obviously I could have missed something. And at those times, what was the secondary assistant doing? Following this Japanese man's orders to adjust the lighting or pass him implements. But that doesn't mean Mama wasn't a vital part of the team. Quite, yes. So would you kindly refrain from staring at my cheek like that? Professor Migatoba, think! Was there nothing at all that seemed out of place to you? Well, yes, there was, as a matter of fact.
Hold it!
In all of the previous 4 killings attributed to the professor, the victims were killed by an enormous dog, I believe. Their throats were, well, mauled. Correct. And I've yet for Lord Van Zeeks was stabbed. So, do you mean to say you think Lord Clint Van Zeeks had nothing, in fact, been one of the victims... had not, in fact, have been one of the professor's victims? There is no basis for which to doubt the findings of the investigations carried out at the time. But Genshin Asogi confessed to all of his crimes upon his arrest. He admitted to having taken the lives of all 5 members of the aristocracy. Yet the beast who was used to carry out the killings was never identified. No evidence was found to suggest that Genshin have ever kept a dog. Turns out he was the monster himself. He just bit the man. A true hound of hell.
Hold it!
But, you weren't actually present at the autopsy yourself, were you, Dr. Gory? Or does that matter? Well, I just wonder how useful your testimony could be in that case, really. I mean, it would be different if your mother or Dr. Scythe were in the stand, but... I've read all the paperwork about the case, and Mama's told me all about the story countless times. The statement I just made is exactly what was written in the autopsy report. You will allow me to testify, or I will open you up like a paper doll. I did confirm that myself at the time, it's true. Besides the stab wounds, there were no other signs of internal trauma. I see. Mama told me all about it. Oh? As she said, there was nothing of note internally. But they did find an amazing piece of evidence. Something unbelievable. Unbelievable? What do you mean? Genshin was a werewolf, yeah! Come on, Dr. Gory, what was it?
Hold it!
What exactly was it, though? What does beautiful but dangerous mean? Well, it was sparkly and round with a hole, as if it might slip off a finger, perhaps. It was a ring belonging to Genjin Asogi. My father's ring was inside the victim's stomach? At the time, Genshin wore a large ring on the digitus quarter of his left hand, the fourth ring or ring finger. Why don't you just call it that? Why don't you just call it a digitus finger? No one ever calls it that. I had understood it was some kind of keepsake. When my father left Japan for London 16 years ago, I was 8 years old. But I remember that ring. You do? My father's possessions were sent to our family home in Japan after his death, but the ring wasn't among them. Obviously not. It was a key piece of evidence. It remains under lock and key in the stores at Scotland Yard to this day. You'd think he would return it after the case had been solved, though? After the autopsy, Genshin was summoned by the police to check for the presence of his ring. It wasn't on his hand, of course. Moreover, there were deep abrasions on his finger where it had been pulled off. They arrested the man there and then, right before my eyes. How could they? I brought the ring along with me today. What? Here it is, a bit dusty from years in the stores. Why does it look so intimidating and like evil? That's not literally holding... That's not holding it like it was fixed onto the ring. That's like holding it in place ready for torture. Hey, Matt, welcome. Gonna listen and drive only. Good. Be safe, but welcome. Good gracious, yes, that's it. I haven't seen that ring in 10 long years. And that was found inside the victim's stomach. Yes, I'm afraid so. You hesitated there, Professor Mikotoba. Should we read something into that? Well, it's just that thinking back now, I didn't actually witness the moment it was extracted from the victim's body. Oh my, really? At that precise moment, Dr. Wilson had asked me to fetch him a new scalpel, you see. Dr. Gory, the removal of historic evidence from the stores requires my consent, does it not? She just hides herself. However it came to be here, the court cannot deny that this is crucial evidence for today's proceedings. Yes, but we went through it in a previous game where it's like, no, you can't just present evidence, you have to make it so then it's allowed evidence. Very well, you may submit it. Woo! The ring belonged to Genshin Asogi, found in Lord Clint Van Zeek's stomach during the autopsy. The claws clasping the gem look sharp enough to cause a very nasty scratch. Again, why would you make it this sharp? It looks so uncomfortable to wear. It's not the sort of ring normally seen in Japan. They almost look like claws protecting that jewel. We must examine it carefully, Mr. Naruhodo. Very carefully indeed. Let's have a look at this ring. These fat claws are doing a good job of protecting the equally fat gemstone in the middle of this ring. Yes, if you were clumsy, you could give yourself a rather nasty cut on them, I should think. Ow! My finger's bleeding. The claws really are sharp. Oh my, that was a very quick clumsiness, Mr. Naruhodo. Even for you. Who would make such a dangerous ring? You couldn't swallow it without doing yourself some fairly serious damage, surely. A sticky mochi bun is about the size it would go down much better, with some red bean paste in the middle. Someone as clumsy as me would probably manage to choke on it somehow. There's no, like, identifying marks on this or anything. Although the way that this looks makes it seem as though you rotate it and then it, like, either comes out or there's a secret compartment. I think that's it. Just the fact that it's sharp, and if he tried to swallow it, he'd probably scratch up his throat and bleed.
Hold it!
And that was the decisive piece of evidence that led to Genshin Asogi's arrest? Correct. After further investigation by Scotland Yard, the man admitted to his crimes. That's a lie. My father was no killer. Barak Van Zieks, it was you! You twisted the truth to suit your purpose. Your hatred of me doesn't change the facts that were established 10 years ago. My brother, Clint. It was my brother, Clint, had closed in on the professor. In the end, he exposed the man and put a stop to his lethal rampage. In the way only a man of my brother's caliber could. That's everything, is it? My poor father, he looks so troubled. Perhaps because 10 years ago something happened that's been weighing on his mind. Oh, I couldn't say were his words. That phrasing was very deliberate, I'm sure. I wonder if he's had his suspicions all these years. If that's the case, we need to use this cross-examination to prove what really happened, and remove any trace of doubt. If we could establish that Kazuma-sama's claim that the fabricated evidence was true, we can't shy away from this now. Even if what we thought we might uncover could lead to a total calamity. But don't worry, Mr. Naruhodo, I'll be right beside you. Whatever may happen, who cares what happens to Van Zieks, as long as I'm with you? So we would probably make the assumption that he would have had to swallow the ring. And in order for that to happen, he would have needed to have scratched up his throat, which probably would have caused injury. But the fact that that's not mentioned at all in the autopsy report is kind of weird. Let me just double check it. Death through a single stab to the heart. Indicative of a duel. Scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring finger on the right hand, but no documents or corresponding ink was found. Recovered from the victim's stomach during autopsy report. No internal injury or trauma noted anywhere in the body, which wouldn't make sense. So I guess I present this.
Objection!
No, I present the ring. The witness's last statement exhibits a fundamental inconsistency. Not one that any British court would recognize, counsel. What? Remember, this is a closed court. Whatever fate befalls you in here, no one outside will ever know. Whoa, okay. Jesus, threatening me. Should I be wondering if I'll make it out of this courtroom alive? So it must be the ring then. Oh, whoops.
Objection!
Okay, maybe it's not this one then. Maybe I've got the right idea but the wrong statement. As the judge must deny your objection. There is no contradiction here. Oh. No contradiction, other than the fact that the Far Eastern lawyer is practicing in British courtroom. Put there by a not-so-far-away Lord Chief Justice, if you remember. Maybe I present it here.
Objection!
Yeah! I knew I was right. The court has heard that the ring was extracted from the victim's stomach, but you didn't actually see it being removed, did you, Professor Mikotoba? That's right, as I said in my testimony before. At that moment, I was fetching a replacement scalpel that Dr. Wilson had requested. In other words, you can neither confirm nor deny whether this ring, in fact, really came from the victim's stomach or not. What are you suggesting, counsel? That the ring was never in the victim's stomach to begin with. It's entirely feasible that Dr. Wilson fabricated that detail about the autopsy. What are you saying? That Dr. Wilson was in possession of the ring in advance, after it was somehow stolen from Dr. Asogi, or Mr. And he produced it during the procedure, pretending to have found it in there, and then at the victim's stomach.
Objection!
Supposition at best. What possible evidence do you have to support such a rash claim? The evidence is right here. That's the autopsy report. It explicit in that report, Counsel. Other than the ring, nothing unusual was noted internally, so I'm not sure how you pretend to prove your point. You've already done it for me, my lord. The lack of internal injury says it all. What? To swallow a ring of this size will require considerable effort and determination, and also a very strong throat. In addition to its size, there's a sharp claws around the gemstone to contend with. My brother Clint was a determined man, and on the brink of death, and even more so, I'm sure. He would have stopped at nothing to ensure that evil killer was brought to justice. But if he really had swallowed that enormous ring, it's inconceivable that no traces of its passage down his throat would have remained as internal trauma. No. And there you have arrived at the sticking point. I'm doing the wrong voice. That's precisely why I had my doubts about the findings myself 10 years ago. Then why didn't you say something at the time? I did. I still remember the conversation I had with Dr. Wilson in the laboratory that day. I never gave Wilson a voice, so I might have to make one up for him. Look at this. Now, this is a very curious thing to find in a man's stomach, wouldn't you say? But isn't that rather peculiar, Dr. Wilson? What's that now, Mikatoba? Well, if you swallowed the ring of that size with those sharp metal claws that it has, surely you would expect to see damage to the throat and esophagus. Torn mucous membranes at the very least. Dr. Mikatoba, if may I remind you that I have vastly more experience than you. I'm terribly sorry. I could think of plenty of ways to explain why no injuries would have been seen. No, let's say this. The victim would appear to have ingested the item as evidence to identify his assailant. Go ahead, write it down. So I was right. Dr. Wilson deliberately fabricated the results of the autopsy to implicate my father. I'm disappointed, Counsel. That argument is no more than speculation. What? Dr. Wilson was Britain's leading authority on forensic science and autopsy work, and there is no scientific basis in which to doubt the man's expert opinion. Pardon the interruption, my lord, but damage to the mucous membranes of the throat is easily identified, even in living subjects. Using a device used in endoscope recently demonstrated in practical use in France. I want one. The government can pay. I don't think so. And Dr. Gorey, rest assured that your removal of evidence from the stores without permission will not go unpunished. We open up the dead to find the truth. I beg your pardon. She moved that slower. But Mama, she chose to stitch up her corpse with all her secrets inside. That's wrong. Dr. Gorey, it's looking as though she's chosen to walk a different path to her mama. Excuse me for drinking my hollow chalice in these halls. Yes, the ring. What about the ring? I've just remembered something. An earlier incident. What incident? The one I recounted to you before, about a memory I have. Of Genshin Asogi saving my life. What? My father saved your life? Oh, I have to turn the thing on again. Whoops, I muted myself by accident instead. It was 10 years ago on a foggy night. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at a late hour. All of a sudden... We're having a flashback within a flashback, guys. Don't make a peep, you'll come with us. All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scars. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He shielded me. Whoops. It was on the ring finger of his left hand that he used to wear that ring. Are you saying... I've always believed those thugs were after me. But now, I'm starting to question if perhaps I wasn't the intended target after all. Wait, but... Genshin was arrested 2 days after that attack. And in that short interval, the decisive evidence needed to indict him was miraculously found. You mean, the ring was stolen from him? You think that's what those thugs were after that night? 6 people watching. Woo, hey everybody.
Objection.
You pathetic coward. You expect me to believe that you weren't involved? What do you mean by that? It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who took it. You stole my father's ring. You set the whole thing up so you could paint him as a mass murderer and have him arrested. Kazuma. Open your eyes. Ryunosuke? You're turning against me too? You must know deep down. The truth can be completely obscured even when your judgment is only slightly clouded. But at the moment, you seem to have floundering through a dense fog. Is that why you were so insistent I should be present in the trial? To see you like this? Well, this is an amusing spectacle. What a grandiose expression on your face, as if you were Lady Justice herself. It seems you have thoroughly convinced yourself on this alleged fabrication of the autopsy report results. So much so that you're apparently blind to the blatant contradiction that would be born out of it. What? Though it is extremely hard to believe, let us imagine that there was some misconduct during the autopsy. If that were the case, why would Asogi not have disputed the findings in his trial? Oh. Because they could have sent an assassin to kill his son, and then he had to buy the whole thing. In the closed court hearing 10 years ago, the defendant never once denied the claims against him. Actually, if you look here, the last one testament, apparently Mr. Asogi described it as the only weapon he had left. Okay, maybe he didn't write that. Maybe I'm just making things up. In the closed court hearing 10 years ago, the defendant never once denied the claims against him. Isn't that right, Lord Van Zeeks? Yes. Oh, what happened to my throat? Yes, that is indeed correct. Upon hearing the verdict of guilty, he merely closed his eyes, quietly accepted the judgment. The actions of a man who has accepted responsibility for his deeds and is resigned to his fate. But then... Oh my, that is very strange. If Mr. Asogi did nothing to oppose the charges against him, then... that would surely mean there was no fabricated evidence. Not really. He could have been threatened as well to just accept the court hearing. An obvious conclusion at which you should have arrived many minutes ago, Prosecutor Asogi. Your twisted loyalty and clouded judgment are hampering your abilities for logical thought. Genshin Asogi's silence at this hearing could only mean one thing. There was no fabrication of evidence during the autopsy of his final victim 10 years ago. But if that autopsy was all above board, there'll be nothing to stop Lord Strongheart bringing his trial to an immediate conclusion.
Objection!
He's gonna have a bigger crash out now. He becomes a baby. He's like, where? It's not true. Thank you, Ryunosuke. If it wasn't for your frank words just now, this child may very well have ended prematurely. Kazuma? What is this latest absurdity, Council? My lord, your reasoning is perfectly sound. But for one giant hole. I beg your pardon. You claim my father's silence was due to the fact that there was no fabricated evidence. But there's another possible explanation. You've overlooked the possibility that he had a reason for maintaining his silence.
Objection!
Silence that would lead him to being convicted and sent to his death. If the autopsy results were an invention, there's no conceivable reason why the man wouldn't have possessed it. That's a weird pose.
Objection!
Oh, those results were an invention, all right. There's no question of that. Or are you forgetting that 2 people with a connection to the autopsy have been assassinated? If I force the grievances I feel from my mind, I start to see you in a very different light. I think perhaps it's you who's been living in delusion these 10 years. Me? You don't say that to Van Zeeks. Get out of here, Kazuma! Kazuma-sama has created one last chance for us here, Mr. Naruhodo. If we can only show there was a reason for his father's silence in this trial. A reason why the man would have said nothing, even though he was innocent. Could it have been a part of some negotiation, perhaps? Enough rhetoric. The court must be shown evidence. What proof do you have that could possibly explain Asogi's silence in court? Front pointing Van Zeeks isn't real and he can't hurt you. What proof do you have that could possibly explain Asogi's silence in court? Would it... I'm like thinking about the Asogi papers here, that they're important for this. Yeah, I'm thinking the papers. I'm gonna go with that.
Take that!
This is the defense's answer to that question. As I indicated before, my patience for rhetoric is growing thin. You could have at least accompanied that penalty with an explanation of why that answer was wrong. If Kazuma-sama's father knew of that any evidence being used to convict him was fabricated, why would he have said nothing in his trial? If it were me, I'd have to protest my innocence until I was blue in the face. So if we were right about the autopsy results, there must have been a strong reason for his silence. Well then, perhaps he was saying nothing in exchange for some sort of clemency? That could be it. My lord, the defense would like to... Enough rhetoric. The court must be shown evidence. So it's not the papers. Whoops, didn't mean to pick that up. I meant to go to the side. Because the way I'm thinking it is that they probably threatened his son's life, so they didn't... So he decided to just go, okay, well, I'll just take the blame, and then my son can live. But I don't know how I would present that. However, that might not be the case. He might also just be protecting... Van Zeeks or something. Let's go through one by one. Maybe I'm reading something that's in these things. Using his job. Effects. Aiding and abetting the escape of the prison convict just prior to his execution. Prior to the convict's concentration, I believe the convict engaged in some sort of negotiation with prison staff in order to secure assistance. Oh, maybe it's this.
Take that!
It's true that Genshin Asogi's silence during this trial resulted in his conviction. But that didn't actually lead to his execution. On the contrary, it led to his escape. An escape that was only possible because he'd been sentenced to death. I looked it up. I don't think you figured it out. I figured it out. And now I just see the answer in the chat. Damn it. But it's fine. I'm good. I would usually ask for answers, but it's good. Well done. Back to the roads. I'm sorry you had to pull over for that, Matt. Although I find it hard to believe my father would have negotiated in that way, the defense is correct. A fake execution, falsifying of a death certificate, and a jailbreak inside a coffin. Clearly, such an elaborate plan wouldn't have been carried out by my father alone. He must have had the help of a collaborator from the judiciary. I have here the dismissal notice of the chief warder who was working in the prison at the time. The notes read, there are indications that the jailbreak was in planning prior to the inmate's incarceration. In other words, there were suggestions of some sort of negotiation between Mr. Asogi and the British government. In exchange for his silence in court, he was given an assurance that he would be broken out of prison. Yes, with a sort of clandestine agreement in place, I can imagine he would have kept very quiet. I would go further than that, in fact. I would say that the elaborate jailbreak of Mr. Asogi can be explained in no other way. Order, order! First fabricated evidence and now a jailbreak conspiracy. Of course, because it's all intimately linked. And the prosecution wishes to summon new witnesses to the stand. Witnesses. People who can testify about the jailbreak that took place 10 years ago. Governor Caden and the poor chief warder of the prison. I won't allow this trial into such a farce. To summon the governor of the prison after all these years. Oh, it wouldn't be a trouble, my lord. What? Father? My dear friend appeared a little rattle-pated? Rattle-pated at times, but I can assure you he's extremely thorough. He wired both Barclay and the local prison earlier, asking Governor Caden and Mr. Vigil to attend the Old Bailey as a matter of extreme urgency. Mr. Sholmes did that? Are you telling me that both men are, unless I'm much mistaken, awaiting just outside the courtroom at this very moment? Sholmes, Jesus, man. He's got that future-like writing. My lord, you must permit the trial to proceed as you declared at its outset. You promised that we would stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Very well. Bring in the witnesses. Make no mistake, I too would like nothing more to lay this business to rest once and for all. I bet it turns out that he's not actually the killer and it's someone else entirely. Like, actually, it was me, the warden governor, whatever. I gotta bring back the freaking Scottish accents. Would the new witnesses state their name and occupation for the court, please? Oi, Barry Caden, Governor Barclay Prison. Everyone calls me Gossip. I shall judge. Wait, no. I didn't get a chance to finish reading that because I was in the wrong voice. Everyone calls me Gossip. I shall judge little tidbits passers by you. Your other persona, if you don't mind. Oh, I do beg your pardon. Of course. My name is Daily Vigil. I used to be the chief warder at the Barclay prison. The reason you've been summoned here to court today is to testify about the jailbreak of the so-called professor 10 years ago. What? The professor? We already been through all that before, a decade ago. And the conclusion? He was there that wasn't anything untoward happened. A convict escaped from your prison, Governor. Hardly what you called nothing untoward. Well... The convict's death certificate was somehow falsified after he allegedly executed. He was allegedly executed. And he escaped the prison inside his own coffin. A plan of that complexity would never have been carried out without the help of somebody of influence inside the prison. Governor Caden, don't imagine the passage of time will afford you any protection. If it turns out that you were involved in the plot to break Mr. Asogi out of your prison, and then of course, the consequences will be very serious. In all likelihood, a capital punishment. Gods! Oh, no, laddie, all I did was... Witness, Governor Caden. Aye, sir. You have a critical role to play in the public safety of our country, a great responsibility to shoulder. The significance of your testimony in court cannot be understated. Therefore, think carefully before you speak. And Prosecutor Asogi, if you threaten the witness again, you will be held in contempt of court. He wasn't threatening him, he was just telling him the truth. My apologies, my lord. There's no disputing the fact that an intricate jailbreak plot was enacted 10 years ago. If you don't mind running long, we can get to that and finish this and do the epilogue next time. To be honest, I don't want to go over time again, so I'm probably not going to do that because I went over time yesterday and that wasn't a good thing because I ended up having to do things a lot of late while people were in sleep. So I'd rather be able to finish on time today, so we may have to leave the rest of this case for next time. I'm going to keep going for now because I still got 30 minutes. So... yeah, I'm just letting you know that I probably won't be doing the long running overtime. There's no disputing the fact that an intricate jailbreak plot was enacted 10 years ago. Clearly, you were both involved in some way. So you will testify before the court now and explain exactly what took place. Very well. Let the witnesses give their formal testimony. Tell the court everything you know of the plot to break Asogi out of Barclay 10 years ago. Witness testimony, the jailbreak plot. Oh, hi, Saroon. You have to make a decision. At this page, you'll finish the last cross-examination today, but the epilogue is very long by the Ace Attorney standards. Oh, God. Just end after those 30 minutes? Yeah, I was gonna. Sorry, Saroon. I didn't know you were here, but welcome. I guess that's made the decision then. The jailbreak plot. Oh, it was the day the Japanese jock was found guilty. The directive came from the prosecutor's office. I signed the convict of the chief warder here, Vigil, and they put the plan into action behind the scenes. I was responsible for Asogi right up until the night in question, or the execution, and I knew nothing of any plot. I didn't ken if there would be some negotiations behind the convict in the prosecutor's office. All I did was carry out my duty for Her Majesty's great British Empire. A directive from the prosecutor's office? Are you saying that it was the jailbreak plot? Aye, that's right. Who sent it? Who authorized the plan? I didn't ken that. You're saying you don't know? Listen, that was no thing about the there wasn't a thing about the professor's case that was near unusual in some way. I didn't ask no questions. I just did what I was told to do. More than I could to tell you. I see. But if the jailbreak plan originated from the prosecutor's office, then one thing is very clear. As suspected, there were clandestine dealings going on between Mr. Asogi and that office. The jailbreak was promised in exchange for Mr. Asogi admitting to the crimes he didn't commit. I meant to type paste, not page. That's fine. Whoever came up with the last section should be fired. Oh, you mean for Death Stranding? Yeah, it wasn't that good, to be honest. But I'll get into that when I do the stream tomorrow. That, Counsel, is nothing more than speculation on your part. So, let me ask the defense. Oh, yes, my lord? I fail to see how these witnesses have any more pertinent information here. Do you intend to assert your right to a cross-examination? Absolutely. I have no intention of squandering a single opportunity, my lord. It seems all you Japanese are fiercely tenacious. Very well. Proceed, Consul. Like, he's getting more tired in his voice because he's just like, oh, fine, I guess we'll do it. And you say you don't know who actually issued the detect directive? Aye, that's right. All I can be sure of is that there was an official. But if it was from the prosecutor's office, that narrows down who could have issued it straight away. And it wasn't me. I cannot say without certainty that it did originate from the prosecutor's office. What? There's no telling where it started. There's a fair chance it came from higher up the ladder. Basically, I cannot give you any indication of who was behind it. You can't be serious. All we can say for sure is that the order must have come from somebody in the authority, I suppose. The likes of us on the ground, as it were, didn't bother with idle speculation. I can't do that voice with this word. We just get the job done. I've only got 2 hit points left, jeez.
Hold it!
So, Mr. Vigil, you didn't know anything about it at all? That's right. I only knew my only role in the scheme was a scapegoat. Oh, that's right, isn't it, Governor? Some poor beggar had to take the rap for it. Alright then, who else didn't know about the plan? I've not the first idea, laddie. My part with the whole business was basically just dealing with the aftermath. Well, then I wouldn't be surprised if there were other folk in the prison service who had been given similar jobs. So you don't know who else was involved? Aye, that's right. All I can tell you is that the night it actually happened, the person at the reins was Dr. Stevens. Dr. Courtney Stevens, or Dr. Scythe as she's known now. Why did I have to get caught up in such a terrible business?
Hold it!
Did you not notice anything unusual happening in the lead up to that night? Oh, everything was unusual. An exception after exception. After all, it was the professor. The man had terrorized the country as never before with his crimes. In order to hide his identity, he was forced to wear a iron mask over his head. Hideous treatment. That fellow was surprisingly docile for someone who'd taken the lives of 5 of the country's nobles. Being the chief warder, I was the only person permitted to approach his cell. I can still hardly believe that I was duped by my own country. I believe you jumped from the window of the governor's office when the jailbreak blamed on you, didn't you? Losh, Fiddle, I can't apologise enough. No, Governor, I don't believe you can. I won't change what's happened. And what else can you tell us about the situation, Governor Caden?
Hold it!
But you already acknowledged the orders came from the prosecutor's office to arrange the man's escape. There must have been some sort of negotiation. It's the only explanation. Aye, well, be that as it may, I didn't ken nothing about that. Well, the witness stand is no place for telling what you don't know for sure. I ken that much, I do. Then I presume you also know this. Not telling what you do know is a criminal offense. So you were just following orders, is that it? I'm afraid that would absolve your guilt here. A man was still killed illegally, even if he was a condemned criminal. You may very well be found complicit in murder, Governor. When you allegedly killed 5 people, but you're just a chill guy. Yeah. So what's it to be, is it? Even with the threat of conviction, you won't even break your silence.
Hold it!
Did you carry out the plan in its entirety? I did everything I could at the time. As you know, Genshin Asogi was shot dead in Lowgate Cemetery after the escape. Tell me, was that part of the plan too? My instructions were to get it over with, to do with getting the jail, with nothing more. I cannot tell you anything about what happened after that. Ugly. Personally, I believe his death was the last part of the plan. What's wrong with you? Mr. Vigil, is something wrong? Yes, sir. What can I do for you, sir? He's saluting now? What is it? Some sort of Barclay convention? What Governor Caden was just saying seemed to upset you. Did it bring something to mind, perhaps? For the last 10 years, I've completely blotted out the memories of that time from my mind. I was betrayed by my superiors in the name of my country. Just as my father was betrayed, it seems. But you see, thinking back now, I really can't imagine the shooting of Mr. Asogi in the cemetery was ever part of the plan. What makes you think that? Well, it just doesn't make sense, does it? To make the man admit to crimes he didn't commit with the promise of a jailbreak, only to kill him in the end. That's treachery of the worst kind. But the point is, if the intention was always to betray him, why would there be any need for all the chicaneries of an escape? Yes, that's quite true. If whoever negotiated with Asogi never intended to keep his or her end of the bargain, it would have been far simpler just to let the man be executed in prison as dictated by his sentence. It all happened in that vast chamber of secrets that is Barclay behind the high prison walls. I suppose nobody knows what really went on in the execution room now. Yes, it's an unsettling mystery, certainly. But truth be told, there is a wee matter that's never quite made sense to me. If you believe there was some kind of negotiation behind the jailbreak, between the Asogi and a body at the top, it doesn't quite add up, does it? Governor Caden, I must insist that you explain these doubts that you have. By amending that your formal testimony. Gads. Aye, go on then. Ravishon is also watching from Twitch. Wow. Currently existing across multiple timelines. Oh wow, I appreciate that. I don't know if that counts though. Hopefully it doesn't get you or me in trouble if you do that, but if you want to watch 3 separate streams, that would be crazy. It seems to me that the Japanese fella didn't have nothing to bargain with.
Hold it!
Admitting to the crimes, that was what he had to bargain with, surely. I cannot see that myself. After all, did the prosecution have no conclusive evidence against the Charlie, eh? This, you mean, discovered during the final victim's autopsy. There's every possibility this conclusive evidence was fabricated by Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Objection!
Possibilities are all very well, but nothing has been proven. You can holler about misconduct in the trial 10 years ago all you like. But if you can't establish that it happened with hard evidence, no one's going to listen. Aye, that's right. That's what I'm saying is. The convict had nothing. Nothing he could use for a kind of bargaining at all. The witness makes an astute point. Logically, it would seem no negotiating had taken place. And yet the plan to break the man out of prison was definitely put into practice. So he must have been armed with something that gave him an angle to negotiate. So Asogi-san agreed to confess to the crimes because he was assured he would be broken out of prison later. I really don't think that Kazuma-sama's father would have engaged in such negotiations. Then perhaps something compelled him to agree? And now Balleroth is there. You can only watch on YouTube because no ads and everyone else is here. I mean, I think YouTube has ads. I don't know how they do it on streams when they're live, because I don't usually watch streams live, but yeah. What a terrible thing, using the law to legitimize such underhanded dealings with a desperate man. Only to be double-cross him in the end. It's quite the opposite of justice. I can't help feeling there's something about this apparent negotiation that doesn't quite add up. There's something doesn't quite up, Mr. Naruhodo. No, it doesn't, but I can't put my finger on quite what it is yet. Live streams don't have mid-roll ads on YouTube. Ah, okay. Well, in that case, we must keep digging until we identify the problem. Okay, so it's probably the last one. And the last thing I would think would probably be the Asogi papers, because he was desperate to find them, but they never found anything.
Objection!
Confessing under oath to murders he didn't commit on a verbal assurance of later being broken out of prison. Genshin Asogi was taking an incredible risky gamble. Very true. And there was nothing to stop the British breaking their word and executing him behind closed doors anyway. Twitch requires ads or you get shadow banned. I mean, yeah, but I can't stop the ads. I don't know how you would do something like that to stop them. Under normal circumstances, no man would stake his life on a gentleman's agreement like that. Which means that Mr. Asogi must have had a trump card. Something that guaranteed he wouldn't be betrayed. Some kind of weapon. Hammers! The fellow couldn't have possessed anything like that. I've lost the voice, 1 second. Oh boy! 1 second. Oh boy. Every time. Alright. Let's go a little bit more so I can just get this bit done. Just that it's like it gets to a point where it's like, hold on a minute. But you know that he did, Governor. Asogi, the Asogi Papers, the name given to the last will and testament of Genshin Asogi. It turns out that Mr. Asogi was hiding his will in his cell at Barclay. Chief Warder Vigil caught him with it with one day. You squealed, did you, you e-rat? Did I tell you to keep that a secret? You can't touch me now. I'm doing the wrong voice. Ah. When Mr. Vigil caught sight of that will through the bars of the convict cell, Mr. Asogi pleaded with the warder. Oh, I've got to turn the echo on. 1 second. Again. Alright then, what's that on the paper? A last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. weapon? You have double echo because you're watching from 3 different streams. After the convict had been killed following the elaborate pretense of the jailbreak, that document mysteriously disappeared, didn't it? Well, yes. The prison warder searched through the belongings of his cell, but that will was just nowhere near to be found. As I understand it, an exhaustive search was made for the document, which became known as the Asogi Papers. Governor Caden, I believe you ordered the prison staff to find it all at all costs, didn't you? Eh? Wouldn't that be right in saying that you knew? You knew that the so-called Asogi Peppers had the potential to make great waves somehow. Jeez, what the blaze are you blathering about? The will was found, right and proper. In the fella's cell where it would be. But how can that be? But how can that be? Here we're in this cell. We all searched the place, from top to bottom. Oh, you didn't do a proper job, eh, you peely-wally galoot? You can't criticize me now. I almost died because of you. I keep making him posh by accident. I shouldn't you afore, did I know you're your lawyer? Yes, you did. I'd have the documents right here. It's written in Japanese and reads, The Last Will and Testament of Genshin Asogi. Which means everything is as it should be. Not quite, my lord. You see, there's an undeniable inconsistency here. What? What inconsistency? You need a Gina investigations? That would be actually kind of cool. She has her trusty, and he said steed, hound Toby. Mr. Asogi described the document as the only weapon he had left. And yet, this will contains nothing of significance at all. Nothing that would have given the convict any leverage. Are you suggesting, my learned friend, that the last will and testament stored at Barclay Prison all these years is actually a fake? As has clearly been demonstrated already, what went on in Barclay Prison was far from above board. Everyone's shocked. That last vilification by the defense was an affront to the entire British legal system. This absurd notion of a weapon is something for which we have only the former Chief Warder's words. The man could easily be lying, or at the very least, sorely mistaken. What? No, I definitely heard him say that, I swear. Clearly we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to know exactly what happened with these so-called Asogi Papers. A waste of time if the will was fake. Where is the real document?
Objection!
Mr. Vigil was stabbed in the back by the judiciary 10 years ago. He lost everything, nearly his own life. And now you're going to do it again? You're ready to brand him a liar and turn your back on him without even letting him defend himself. It's clear that Barclay Prison is hiding something. It's clear that the jailbreak was masterminded by somebody in the prosecutor's office. It's clear that some illicit goods took place. Is your lordship just going to cross over the facts and blah blah blah? What did you say? We should hear more from the Chief Warder. Have him testify again. The trial must go on. The mourn's voice must be heard. It would seem that a vocal few here are utterly blind to the truth. Actually, that sounded like everyone in court was in agreement there. Very well then. Let the witness testify again. Tell the court precisely what you think you saw of the convict's last will and testament. Yes, sir, my lord. Awesome. Strongly Lee's plouting. The Asogi Papers. And that, I think, will be a great place to stop. It's a nice cliffhanger, too. Like, trying to find out what the Asogi Papers really were. What they're going to find out. As a question to the people that have played this or know about the game, this chapter more, how long is the next part? Like, is there much left of this part of the case? Because I know you said there's an epilogue, so I'm assuming there's at least another hour. But how much is left of this part of the case? Just saving again, because I already forgot if I saved. And end there. Don't. Yes. All right. Running a bit early, but that's just to make up for yesterday. The Amogus paper is about an hour of this, and the epilogue is an hour. So at least a 2-hour stream. So we should at least get one stream out of it. Which will be good. So we shall continue this next week, Tuesday. So be sure to tune in for that. It's going to be fun. Tomorrow I'll be back with more Death Stranding. We still have to finish that off fully. Which may be... Well, because I think we're on the last chapter of that, or episode. It'll probably be finished in the first, 30 minutes or so, and then I might be doing the side stuff. But yeah, we shall find out what happens next with Great Ace Attorney next week Tuesday. But for now, thank you all for joining. I hope you all enjoyed. It was good to see everyone. Thank you for joining. As usual, if you have not already, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, do the bell notifications so you know when I next stream. And depending on where you're watching from, be it YouTube or Twitch, be sure to follow on either one or both, whichever one. And if you like what I do and want to help support me, there's links to Patreon and tips. And if you do become a patron, you get your name entered to the patron list here, where I give you a shout out of every stream like I do with Hiroru Okuni and the Soulmaster 37 and Rafatron 2000. I thank you for the continued support. I greatly appreciate you all. And we show who's boss in court and then get a Scottish and Irishman to fight, And yeah, we'll be back next week Tuesday with this, where apparently we're going to be crying, going by what Rafatron and everyone else in the chat is saying. So that's going to be fun. But I'll either see you tomorrow or next week. Until then, y'all take care. Have a nice rest of the day. And thanks for joining. Until next time, guys. Bye, everyone. Bye, Matt. Bye, Rafatron. Bye, Balaroth. Bye, Saroon, if you're still here. See you next time.